Okay, now, have you guys ever thought about what makes you happy? Like, what makes you happy? Now, I was trying to think. Ooh, we're similar. You'll see. I was thinking, like, what really makes me happy? And there's a lot of things that make me happy, but if you really want to know what makes me really happy is my wife and I, for our anniversary, we leave our kids and we're like, we're going to go down to San Diego. And I'm not there yet. I'm just setting up the scene, okay? So we go down and we will stay in San Diego, walk around. I let her even, like, her thing is she gets to pick, like, where we're going to stay. Like, we always try to stay at a different hotel so we can, been in some of the cool hotels down there. But what makes me happy is I get to choose where we eat the first night. And I'll be honest with you, there's one thing that I have discovered that is my favorite thing that makes me the most happy there is in the world, and it is at a restaurant called Ruth's Chris. See, Ruth's Chris is an expensive restaurant. I have to save up all year to go to Ruth's Chris. And when I'm saying expensive, okay, like you go and get like, a nice steak at a restaurant, it's like $22 like at Outback, you know what I'm saying? You guys got that right? Yeah, you're like, oh yeah, steak. No. Ruth's Chris, it's $45 and it doesn't include your side dishes. Those are all $10 each. That's expensive. Okay, so I'm going there. Well, my brother said, Trav, you got to go to Ruth's Chris. You got to try their ribeye steak with extra butter. And I'm like, all right. So I go there. I love ribeyes. I love steak. So I go there and I order it. I like it either medium or medium rare. And I say, hey, my brother told me I got to get extra butter. It's like, oh, you got to get extra butter. And they bring it out. And I'm telling you, the first time I discovered this, it was the most tender, the most tasty steak there is in the world. And I have now tried other steaks, and nothing compares to Ruth's Chris ribeye with extra butter. And so now when we go on our anniversary, I'm like, okay, but we're going to Ruth's Chris because that's what makes me happy. And I get excited weeks and weeks in advance to know that I am going to get to have Ruth's Chris ribeye, medium or medium rare, with extra butter. And it's amazing. And we are continuing our series called No Matter What. We're doing the No Matter What series, and we are looking at Paul. Paul, I don't know if you guys were here last week. Taylor set it all up saying that, hey, Paul's in prison. He's gone through all this stuff. He's being chained to guards and all these different situations, but he writes this book, Philippians, and it is known as the rejoice book, the happy book, the here he is in the midst of all these trials, he's happy. And I can't remember, I think he counted how many times it says rejoice or happy or be filled with joy, and I think it was like 17 times or something like that. I should have listened to his talk. And he goes through and he sets up and he says, we can still be happy no matter what. And he first talked about last week, he said, hey, first thing you need to know is we shouldn't be pursuing happiness, we should be pursuing God. And now we're coming to the second section in the first chapter of Philippians. If you have your Bibles, go there. And I want to read this real quick, and I want to give you a little flyby, but I kind of got to get through this because I want you guys to see there's so much stuff in here. We're going to try to hit all this, but we also have not a lot of time to make it happen. So here's what it says right here. In Philippians 1:12 through 30, it says, now I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened to me has really served to advance the gospel. This is Paul talking. He says, what has happened to me has really served to advance the gospel. You need to understand something. If I didn't mention this a minute ago, he is in prison. He is actually chained to guards, okay? He's chained to them in prison, and he's saying, hey, this is actually a good thing that's happening. Really? Okay, I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like a good thing. And he keeps going. He says, you see, as a result, it has been clear throughout the whole palace guard and to everyone else that I am in chains for Christ. He said, I'm here for a reason. It's pretty awesome to realize that, okay? It takes some people years to think, maybe I'm in this hard situation for a reason. He says, because of my chains, most of the brothers in the Lord, the other Christians, have been encouraged to speak the word of God more courageously and fearlessly. He said, guess what? Because of what I'm going through, more people are preaching the gospel. Isn't that awesome? Then he goes on further. He says, now it is true that some preach Christ out of envy and rivalry, which he's saying some are actually teaching it out of wrong motives, out of envy, rivalry, okay? But others are out of goodwill. The ones that are out of goodwill, They do so in love, knowing that I am put here for the defense of the gospel. But the ones that do it out of envy and rivalry, the former preach Christ out of selfish ambition, not sincerely, supposing that they can stir up trouble for me while I'm in chains. There are other people that are actually, it's weird, preaching the gospel, but they're doing it in a way that they're trying to stir up trouble for Paul. So what they're probably doing is they're probably trying to give Christ a bad name, preaching his gospel, so that Paul will get in more trouble. Is that weird? Yeah. But listen to what Paul said. He's like, oh, thanks for making this horrible for me. More people now have questions. More people are, giving me a bad time. And here's what he said. But what does it matter? The important thing that is in every way, whether from false motives or true, Christ is being preached. And because of this, I rejoice. He said, I don't care why you're doing it. The thing is, Christ is being preached. And he said, I can rejoice. I can be in jail and I can rejoice because some amazing things are happening. Then he says, yes, I will continue to rejoice. This is in the end of 18. And then in 19, for I know that through your prayers, he's talking to the Philippians, and the help given by the Spirit of Jesus Christ, what has happened to me will turn out for my deliverance. Now, this is a crazy part. It says, I eagerly expect and hope that I will no way be ashamed, but will have sufficient courage, so that now, as always, Christ will be exalted in my body, whether by life or by death. He takes this weird sidebar. He says, hey, here's the thing is, I'm hoping that I have courage because there's a chance I might die in prison. I might not get out. You see, he's supposed to be standing trial. He's going to be standing trial for preaching the gospel. And he's been in chains for a while. I think he spends 2 years or something in jail. And he isn't sure if he is going to make it. And he's saying, I hope I'm courageous enough. It's kind of a weird sidebar there, right? And then he says, for me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. It's one of the famous verses you probably heard. For me to live is Christ, but to die is gain. What is he gaining when he says that? What do you think he says to die is gain? Does anybody think they know what he's saying he gains?
He's going to heaven.
He gains heaven, all right? And if we have a relationship with Jesus Christ, as it says, we gain. It says, if I go on living in this body, this will mean fruitful labor for me. I'm going to be doing some good stuff for Christ. Yet what shall I choose? I don't know. I'm torn between the two. I desire to depart and be with Christ, so I desire to actually die and go to heaven, which is better by far, but it's more necessary for you guys, with the Philippians, that maybe I remain in this body. Convinced of this, I know that I will remain, and I will continue with all of you for your progress and joy in faith, so that through my being with you again, your joy in Christ will overflow on account of me. Hey, it's good that I'm here, because then I can keep encouraging you, I can keep teaching you and doing some amazing things. So I think that's why God wants me to stay alive right now. He's kind of talking through us. Then he says, but whatever happens, conduct yourself in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. Then whether I come and see you, then if I get out of prison, I come and see you, or I don't get out and just hear about you in my absence, I will know that you stand firm in one spirit, contending as one man for the faith of the gospel, without being frightened in any way by those who oppose you. This is a sign to them. They will be destroyed if they oppose you, but you will be saved, and that by God. For it has been granted to you on behalf of Christ not only to believe on him, but also to suffer. He's saying, guess what? We're going to suffer for him, since you're going through the same struggle you saw I had, and now here that I still have. Okay, so he comes to this section. I want to get through this. Philippians 1, 12 through 30. It's a pretty long section. And Paul is saying, I am in chains. I am behind bars. I am chained to guards 24/7. Yes, a student said, does that mean even when he goes to the bathroom? Yes, probably when he goes to the bathroom, he is chained to a guard. I don't know for sure, but he's chained 24/7. He is in chains. And he said, in the midst of that, I can still be happy. Now, it's probably not the, woohoo, I'm so glad you're here, give me 5 while I'm going to the bathroom next to you. You know what I mean? It's probably not quite that, but he's saying, I can still rejoice. I can still have an attitude of rejoice and happiness because I know that God is at work. And here's what I want to talk real quick. If you have your note sheets, and I'm hoping we have enough time to get through this, I want to give you 4 insights, okay, that I kind of stole these from a guy named Rick Warren from Saddleback, okay? I kind of tweaked them a little bit, but I want to give him a little bit of his due. But I want to talk about no matter what happens, I can be happy if I do these 4 things. No matter what happens in my life, I can be happy. Because guess what? Paul is in chains, and he's still happy. And I want to show you how in just these verses, 12 to 30, you can find 4 things that no matter what happens, I can be happy if I do them. And the first one is this. If you have your note sheets, it is if I use God's goggles. That's the first one. If I use God's goggles, okay? Or God goggles, okay? And what I mean by this is when you see things from God's viewpoint, you see, how many of you guys ever use goggles in a pool? You guys ever use goggles? Okay. So this summer, my kids were playing in the pool, and they like to use, it was at my brother's house, actually, so he has a little deeper pool. Ours is not very deep. And he has this deep pool, and they like to throw these little rockets, I guess you are, that have numbers on them, and it's like you throw them in the pool, and they go down to the bottom, and it's like you're trying to find them. Well, we're ready to go, and we're missing 2, and I cannot find them, and I'm trying to see them, but I can't see them, and I'm swimming the whole length of the pool. Cannot find them. And my son's like, hey, Daddy, try my goggles. And I put on his goggles, and it's so weird how I thought I could see underwater, but when I put those goggles on, I was like, whew. I was like on one end, I'm like, well, there it is over there. There's that one. Now I'm like, can I get them both with my, on one breath? Stuff like that. Like it became, that was a challenge, but it's like it opened my eyes. And I could see underwater so clear, and you probably experienced that. Well, guess what? In our life, we can't always see what is happening. And a lot of times, we don't know what's happening, and for us to get the right perspective, we got to put on God's goggles. We have to see from a different viewpoint, from God's viewpoint, that something is happening. Paul, it says right here, he is in prison. He's behind bars, and it's interesting. This is what he says. Now, I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened to me has really served to advance the gospel. What is happening right now, I have a different viewpoint. Let me tell you something. Paul's plan was to go to Rome. Did you know that? His plan was to go to Rome and preach the gospel, but not in chains. His plan was to go and, I love Rick Warren said this analogy of like he almost wanted to get rent out a stadium and preach the gospel. You know what I'm saying? He wanted to set Rome on fire with the Christ. But what happened is he got a different plan. God put him in prison, chained to a guard. But he says, guess what? Everyone knows why I'm here. In fact, he has a guard of them 24/7. It says that while he was in prison, guards came to Christ. Royal guards came to Christ who had influence and impact on the rest of the kingdom. It also said that Nero's family, history has shown that Nero's family, some of them, Nero was this nasty, nasty Caesar who actually persecuted all the Christians. Some of Nero's family came to Christ because of Paul being in prison. And he said, I can rejoice because I have the right viewpoint. My wife's mom, years ago, and I probably shared this, that she got cancer. She got stomach cancer. They had to remove her stomach. I remember that. She was watching our kids all the time, and she she could barely eat, and they said you only got 3 years to live, maybe 2, but if you do this chemo, we're thinking you'll do 3. She's like, all right, she's doing her chemo. She's pretty much done with chemo. She's been doing it for 6 months. She looks so skinny because she has no stomach, okay? She's losing weight, and she's doing great, and then she isn't feeling good. She's feeling weird. In fact, she's starting to act out weird this one day. So we took her to the doctor, and they didn't know what was going on, so they did another scan, and they found out she had brain cancer. They came back and said, hey, we're sorry, but she only has 2 to 3 weeks left. She goes home, dies in 2 weeks. Boom. And I remember we could be in that situation. God, why would you do this? You said we're supposed to be happy. How can I be happy in that situation? How can my wife handle that? But when we start to see with God's goggles, you know what happened is, here's the crazy thing. We go to the funeral. 400 or 500 people show up, and her mom had been witnessing to her sisters. She has 5 sisters and 2 brothers, and she had been witnessing them for years, and only one of them was a Christian. And at her funeral, 2 of her sisters came to Christ that she had been witnessing for months, for years. And here's the thing is, when we start to see God's viewpoint, now we can go, God, it was actually a good thing. And if you were to go to heaven right now and talk to her, her mom would have said, you know what, if that's what it took for them to come to Christ, heck yeah, any day. And you see, when we start to see things from a different viewpoint, we go, we can be happy. We can rejoice. It's just not always the thing that we were thinking was going to happen. And Paul did not think he was going to be preaching the gospel in Rome in chains. He said others are coming to Christ because of it. The second thing we need to do, and here's the thing, is don't use my points, because I found out last night, my analogy, I was trying to have these cool little analogies to give points. My second one didn't pan out very well. So cross out the I had this cool one, but I just didn't feel like it fit. But it's already there. The second point, so don't put it up there because people will write down the wrong thing. The second point is this, is just, and I didn't write it down. Don't let others control my attitude. So, I can be happy no matter what if I don't let others control my attitude. It's the thing that's in a parentheses right next to, or in the parentheses right next to the blank lines. That's kind of the point, is I can be happy no matter what if I don't let others control my attitudes. See, when we're going through hard times, when life is crazy, we tend to let others control our attitudes. You talk about here, Paul said that while he was in there were some people preaching the gospel, but in a way to actually make it harder on him. I don't know what that means. I don't know if they were mocking him while they're preaching the gospel, if they're going out and they're being those like people on the corner that are saying, if you don't turn, you're going to hell, or at least that's what Paul says God said. I don't know what's going to happen, but they were making life hard on him. And if he let others control his attitude, then he wouldn't see the joy behind what God was teaching him, what he was going through. And I think it's the same with us, is when we're going through hard times, we let other people control our attitudes. And I want you to know something. We can have joy no matter what. We can be happy no matter what if we don't let others control our attitudes. They don't control how we see a situation. We let God control how we see a situation. We can be happy no matter what if, one, we use God goggles. Two, we don't let others control my attitude. And three, if we trust God as my GPS system. Trust God as my GPS system. No matter what happens, I can be happy if I trust God as my GPS system. You're like, what does that mean? Have any of you guys ever used a GPS system in your car or something like that? Okay? Now, guess what? My phone, and almost all iPhones and all those phones, they all have their own like GPS, like Google Maps, right? Map, those kind of like that. So we have the Google Maps, and actually you guys would have did better if you trust God as your Google Maps. That probably would have made more sense than I think of it, because you would have understood it a lot easier. But I don't know about you, but Friday, I was up in Arizona, okay? And I was at spring training with my family, and we had gone to an Angel Padre game, but Angel Padre games was in Tempe, but the Padres' home field is in Peoria, and that's where our hotel was. And we wanted to rush back there. We'd gotten done like at 4:30, and it was like a 35-minute drive there, but the people at the game said, oh no, it's going to take you 45 minutes. And there was friends that we went that were from here, and then there was actually an ex-junior high leader that she lives out there, so she had met us at the game, and she tells us, oh yeah, be careful, I'm going to go, traffic's crazy, you got to get out of here now. So we're like, okay. So we get out there, we fill up our tank, and we get ready to go, and I listen to Google Maps. And Google Maps shows that the freeway's right here, but it says, no, keep taking these side roads for like 20 minutes. 20 minutes? So we're like, okay, so we're starting on this. But as we're driving down this side road, we can see no one's on the freeway. We're like, the freeway, no one's there. And we saw immediately, like 30 yards in front of us, that there's an entrance to get on. And we're like, dude, I think this Maps thing is jacked up. Let's hop on the freeway. So we abandon Google Maps, hop on the freeway, and we're like, see, that's stupid Google Maps, totally stupid. And we drive for about 3 minutes, and we get stuck in dead stop traffic. In fact, now I checked Google Maps, and they said, hey, what was going to take you 45 minutes is going to take you an hour and 15 minutes. And we're like, oh, no. And it's like gridlock stuck, and we're like, oh, my goodness. And we're trying to figure it out. So now my dad goes back on Google Maps. He's trying to find a new route. And they were able to actually adjust for us and get us on a track to where it only took us about an hour, say 15 minutes, because we started to trust it. Now, I tell you that story because there are times in our lives where I didn't trust it because it didn't make sense. And so I talked to that girl. She met us for dinner that night with all these, there was like 10 or 15 of us. And she's like, oh yeah, I took side roads for the first 25 minutes. I was like, oh my goodness, Google Maps was right. And here's why I say this is I can be happy if I trust God as my GPS system, but I like right next to it, I put that things will work out. See, here's the problem. So a lot of times we don't trust God that things will work out. So what happens is God has a plan for us. He's setting the course, and we start to go, God, this doesn't make sense. Why am I going the side route when the freeway looks open? And then we veer off, or we start to get upset, or we're not happy. But when we can trust God's in control, he's going to work things out. And guess what? We can still find joy in that. My son, I've told you this, when he was born 6.5 weeks early and we thought he was going to die, and it was a pretty intense situation, there was a trust of knowing, God, no matter what happens, I know you're in control and you're going to work it out. And whether he lives or whether he dies, whether he's paralyzed or he has some deformities that we have to live with, okay, God, because I have the ability and the strength to understand you are in control and you're going to work it out. And guess what? In the midst of that situation, we could still find joy. You're like, really? Yes. We could still find joy because I trusted God as my GPS and knew that he was going to work it out. Whether it was good for bad, I knew that he was in control. See, we need to trust God as our GPS system. Last thing is this. No matter what happens, I can be happy if I focus on the game plan, not the failed play. Focus on the game plan, not the failed play. Now, let me tell you, football. Football is all about a game plan because it's a long game. And football is about this game plan. But here's the problem is sometimes the plays don't work. Sometimes you have a whole game plan and some of the plays are not working and you can fail and people can get discouraged. How many of you guys watched the Super Bowl this year? Okay, Patriots against Atlanta. I don't know if you watched the game, but Patriots had a game plan. Their game plan was they were going to run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. And their hope was to tire out the defense. Well, guess what? After the first half, they are down, I think, 21-3. 21-3. Okay, I don't know about you, but that seems like a lot of failed plays in there. Okay, they were failing. In fact, everyone was already saying Atlanta's going to win the whole thing. In fact, they come back out of halftime, and Atlanta scores again, stuff 28-3. You're like, the game's over. But you know what's crazy is the Patriots stuck with their game plan they had. And they kept run the ball. And in the fourth quarter, they had tired out the whole defensive line and the defense that they ran on them like crazy. And they were so tired they could not stop them. And New England comes back and wins the game. Here's the crazy part is, a lot of times in life, I put right here, don't focus on our purpose, not our problems. You see, a lot of times we focus on the problems that go on in our life and not our purpose. We get away from our game plan. God has a game plan for it. It's our purpose. It's to love God, love others. That's our purpose in life. And when we are sticking with the game plan, when we are sticking with our purpose, we don't let little problems that happen there, little veered off course situations in our life bring us down because we know God is still in control. Imagine if the New England Patriots like, forget it, we have to do a new game plan. If they would have switched their game plan, they would have lost. If they would have switched their game plan, they would have lost. In fact, there was, Karras just said, it was like a 0.04% chance they could win that game. The only reason they were able to win is because they stuck with the game plan. And in life, a lot of us, we get discouraged, and God says, stick with the game plan. My purpose for you to love God, love others. Stick with it. We need to stick with it. We got to leave pretty soon. Let me just tell you. So no matter what happens, I can be happy if I use God goggles, if I don't let others control my attitudes, if I trust God as my GPS system, and 4, if I focus on the game plan, not the failed play that happens in life. We can be happy no matter what. Let me tell you real quick our challenge here. Here's the challenge. Go ahead and click it. Uh-oh. Is it not there? Is the challenge there? Oh, I didn't put it up there. Dang it. Okay. I have to remember how I worded it because I thought I put it out there. So, let me see it real quick. Oh, Are you focusing on God or are you focusing on the problem? Okay? Ask yourself, are you focusing on God or are you focusing on the problem? All right. Let me go ahead and pray, and then we got to get ready to go. Dear God, I just want to thank you so much, Lord. It says that in your word, Paul was happy even in crazy situations. And God, you said we can be the same way. Lord, a lot of times we just aren't seeing what you're doing, Lord. Would you give us your goggles that we could see from your viewpoint, Lord? Lord, would you help us to be happy no matter what the situation, Lord, by following these 4 steps? We love you in your name. Amen.